Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. Today I'm speaking with Ashleigh Bishop, the co-founder and co-CEO of Bagboard. Now, Bagboard makes smart paper shopping bags. They sell advertising space on them, and then they make them free for shops and consumers. And what's brilliant is that when you're carrying that bag around, you're promoting the brand that's advertised on it. You, as a consumer, earn conscious coins that you can spend on the Bagboard app. And you can spend those coins on the eco-friendly brands that have advertised with Bagboard. So it's a really clever kind of AdTech solution, a circular reward system that makes shopping sustainable. And it's no doubt going to have a huge impact on the number of plastic bags that we use, as well as helping advertisers connect in a really clever way with consumers. Bagboard have already got some really major brands on board, including Sky Ocean Rescue, Unilever, Loop, and the World Wildlife Fund. And there are thousands of retailers who have already signed up, even though they are still pre-launch. Now, Ashleigh's background in advertising, most recently at McCann London, is where she created fully integrated ad campaigns for global brands, including Pandora, Nestle, and Nespresso. So she knows a load about advertising. And she joined her co-founder and her old school friend, Ben, back in 2017 as the co-founder of Bagboard. Since then, the company's raised over £3 million in funding, and the most recent round was £600,000 on crowdfunding. So I'm really excited to find out more about Ashleigh's journey to building the business, raising all of that investment, and as I say, just about to launch. So it's a great example of a business that can raise money even in the pre-launch stage. So let's meet Ashleigh and hear more about her story. Welcome, Ashleigh.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to see you here. So, right, let's go back to the beginning, because I'm really intrigued to hear more about how you, Ben, came up with the idea for the business, how it all kind of started.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, when Ben first reached out to me about this idea, I mean, I'd been working in advertising since I'd left uni, so nearly 10 years in the industry. And I was kind of at the point where I was a little frustrated with the industry myself, because, you know, for me, advertising is this amazing industry. It's hugely powerful. And, you know, I mean, we as consumers, I don't think we even really understand how much of an influence and an impact it has on the way we spend. But for me, it's a little bit frustrating that a lot of the formats that are used for advertising don't actually end up serving that need that consumers have to find out about new products and services that actually can provide them with something that they might value. It's a lot of the formats are a little bit intrusive. The whole industry has become very noisy, and let's be honest, most of us are pretty switched off to advertising. You know, we either scooch past it online, or we've got ad blocker downloads, or we skip past it on you know, and can't wait to press the skip now button on YouTube, or fast forward on our TVs. So this opportunity that advertising has to deliver you information about new brands and products and services that you might actually find add value to your life, we've kind of lost that, and people are just kind of subconsciously taking information on and not actually engaging with advertising in a way that could improve their buying, or really change their purchasing habits for the better. So when Ben approached me, as you said, we were school friends, and we hadn't actually talked to each other for 10 years. So he reached out to me and he was like, Ashleigh, you know, I've got an idea about advertising. You work in advertising and I don't know anything about it. So maybe we could meet up and have a drink and have a chat. And about a bottle and a half of wine later, I think all good sort of businesses often start over a drink.
Yes.
I thought this was the best idea in the world, and just thought it was the most exciting opportunity. This idea of combining, advertising and its incredible influence, and the opportunity for it to inform and influence people in a really positive way, with information about brands that are really trying to do things in a planet positive and people positive way. So that, in a sort of nutshell, is kind of the why I decided to get involved. And really the idea sort of started from there. It kind of kicked off with trying to find a format that people could engage with, but that wasn't intrusive, and could provide a way for people to, really create a two-way conversation between brands and consumers. And bags are kind of a media format anyway. We don't really realize this, but you see a Sainsbury's bag, you always know when you spot a Selfridges bag. They're already a form of advertising. But we just thought, you know what, if we can use that, if we can really sort of like create an ownership around bag media, then there's so many opportunities here. People can, they get a functional piece of, a functional product, because they can reuse our bags. They can solve the single-use plastic bag problem, which, let's be honest, that would be a great starting point. I don't think anyone's going to be too bothered to see the single-use plastic bags go. But also a way for people to engage with and benefit from that media that they're already participating in without necessarily realizing.
Such a clever idea, and I love the way that it will then take you back to an app where you can explore more and then use your points. So, I mean, tell me about the smart bag bit. How does that work? What's in the bag that makes it smart?
So the bag itself is, we work with an amazing digital printing company they are really right at the cutting edge of digital printing technology, which I knew very little about before getting involved in this. And they can do all sorts of clever things with printing. But the main thing that makes the bag smart is purely the fact that every single bag has a unique QR code on it. So every bag can be printed differently with a QR code that when you scan it using the app, that becomes your bag, and it allows you to log every time you're on a journey. So it's super simple for a user. You just scan the bag with the app and then start your journey, and you basically earn on the go. So the longer you use your bag, the more you're carrying it in areas where more people are going to see it. We will be able to calculate the value that bag journey has had for the advertiser, and then we direct a portion of that revenue to rewards that consumers can then spend in the app on the products and services that are advertised on the bags.
Okay, that's amazing. So the consumer controls when a journey is tracked. I had this vision of, this kind of like Big Brother watching me with my plastic bag where I'm going. But it's within the control of the user.
Absolutely, because actually that's a really, really good point, because that's really, I think one of the things that we were very conscious of at the beginning was the data that a lot of advertising formats already have access to, but perhaps not necessarily with the full understanding of the user. Making sure that Bagboard users have full control, and the data that is being collected, they're completely in control of that. It's fully transparent. They can switch it off and on whenever they want. It's all non-personally identifiable data initially as well. So it doesn't tell us anything about you as a user. It just tells us where that bag has been seen, so we can calculate how many people have seen it, and that is what's of value for the advertiser. Okay. I mean, in the future, there is the opportunity for people to give more information about themselves if they want to, because then they can get more of the value of that. But it's all about giving consumers the power and control over that data.
Okay, so would you earn more points if I was taking it, for example, on the tube in London, where there's lots of people going to see it, versus going for a nice country walk? Is that factored in, or is it more about the miles?
No, it absolutely is. It's really about what is that brand looking for, and where are you walking? Of course, if you're walking down the densely populated, Oxford Circus on a Saturday morning, you're going to have hundreds of thousands of people, the opportunity for all of those people to see it. Of course, that's worth a lot to an advertiser, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the bag you're carrying, the advert on that, on that bag, is looking for that kind of audience. It's really about trying to connect brands with users who can kind of make sure that the brand is being seen by the kind of person that they want to reach, and vice versa. So, you know, there's going to be very different things between, you know, say, for example, if you have a Fitbit, they might really want to be carried by someone who's frequently walking past health food shops or nearby local gyms. That might really matter to them because they want to be seen by people who are going to those kinds of places, versus something like, say, another random, you know, example here. Say it was the Lion King, you know, say the Lion King on Broadway wanted to you know, be seen by tourists in Oxford Street, then Oxford Street would be great, because then they've got lots of opportunity to meet people, to reach people who really might go and see the show. So it's just
like being a modern day sandwich board, isn't it? Like walking around with a sandwich board.
Well, I mean, hopefully it's a slightly you know, nicer experience.
Yes. But a brilliant idea, such a clever idea, and also quite complex. And I imagine a lot of things that you need to kind of put in place before you can launch, which actually marries up with the fact that you've done so much work and so much fundraising and you're still pre-launch. So tell me more about the kind of the early days when you started building this business. What did you have to do, and how did you guys fund that very, very early bit when you were trying to get it off the ground?
Yeah, it is a complicated idea, and I think that that's one of the things that has you know, it has taken us time to put the infrastructures in place to really roll this out as a fully formed media platform. The initial phases were really all about research and trying to understand exactly how to position what we were doing and what would be needed to build this into a scalable, measurable platform. We were fortunate that we had within our network the ability to fund the early days just through friends and family. And we actually did an initial round right in the beginning, within the first 6 months of the business, where we raised about £500,000. And that was purely through friends and family. And again, that was just through network. But even trying to do that, obviously, you had to create, none of us had ever raised before. We'd never run our own business. It's myself and two co-founders. So us trying to put together an investment pack, I mean, I think the first one was about 100 pages.
Wow.
Very quickly was told was not appropriate and really was just too much information. You very quickly learn that everything that you think is important about your business, actually, you know, halve it again and get to the absolute.
If you can't get it into 15, 20 slides,
I mean, really, you know, that is, I think, one of the biggest challenges for any person trying to raise funds, is trying to understand that what you think is crucial and what you think is really, really important versus what people actually need to hear to understand the opportunity. There's quite a big gap between those two things.
Absolutely.
So we managed to get this wonderful, you know, wonderful group of people who were able to support the early stages of the business. And then really over time, it was just about building on that, developing that, obviously trying to be really, really careful with cash flow, cash management, and then we were able to then raise again the following year. But it was very much in those early days, it was just, I mean, we were so careful with, you know, the money side of it, because you just don't know when or how easy it's going to be to raise again. And you want to be able to make sure that can stretch as far as possible.
But that, I mean, it's amazing. And actually that is a very large friends and family round. It's not your typical route. So congratulations for that. I mean, just to give the listeners a kind of indication of that round, how many different investors did you get? Do you remember on that round?
Oh gosh, that's a really interesting question.
Like 10 or 20 or 5 or
somewhere between 10 and 20. I can't remember the exact amount off the top of my head, but
yeah.
You know, one of the other co-founders does have a background in finance, so there was a different, you know, the network that we had access to. We're very, very fortunate with that. I don't in any way look back on that and think that is normal, and I think that people are not lucky enough to have that experience. I consider us very fortunate to have had that opportunity early on, because, you know, if you don't have access to that network initially, it's a really, really, you know, it's tough trying to raise anyway, even if you do have access to that network, but without it, it's incredibly difficult. So
yeah, especially at that kind of real idea stage when you haven't actually got anything particularly to prove. That's incredible. But I think that's, I mean, as you say, you've got good contacts, but it also is surely an indicator that people could really see the potential in this idea. And also they must have really had a lot of respect for the skills and experience that you as a founding team brought.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I think that is very much the case. You know, the idea, whilst complicated, you know, there is there's clearly merit in it. You know, otherwise we wouldn't have raised the amount we have. You know, but presenting that in a way to explain that to people, getting down from a 100-page investment deck down to sort of 15. You know, we did have support and help and guidance on doing that. And then of course, you know, myself having advertising background, you know, one of the co-founders having background in, you know, having, you know, strong experience in startups, and the other being from a financial background, I do think that gave us, you know, the sort of experience spread there, was able to give the investor base reassurance that we were the right setup to build this and grow this in an effective way.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on that. And then, so then the next year, you did another raise. So before we just talk about that, how far did you kind of get on that first friends and family round? What had you sort of got to show? What had you got to show for it by the time you were ready to raise again?
Yeah, we actually went really far on that. I mean, we really kept ourselves on such a tight leash with the money. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, you have to be very, very, when you're sort of first starting out, understanding how to manage your cash flow is a very quick learning curve on that. And I think that for us, you know, we were barely paying ourselves. I don't think we actually really did pay ourselves much of salary at all. You know, we just kept everything super tight. We managed to get to the point where we onboarded 2,000 stores within the first 18 months. We had secured a bag production partner. We had started to build prototypes of the bag and started to map out what the whole infrastructure would look like to create the technical requirements for actually rolling this out as a media platform, because it's not just as simple as, oh, give a bunch of stores some bags. That doesn't work for advertisers. Advertisers need to know that their bags, you know, if they want a certain number of people to see it, then those bags have to be able to go out in such a way to achieve that. So you have to be able to predict how many bags a store might need, who's going to be able to pick them up. Are Bagboard users going to be picking them up and generating impressions in the right way? So it's much more than just supply bags when you fancy it. You have to be able to create a way to automatically allocate the distribution of those campaigns in a way to meet the advertisers' needs. So there was a lot of early stage development into actually doing that. But the good thing is that when you're in that sort of developmental stage, you know, it's all sort of in-house resource and in-house. It's basically just the cost of you guys working together and actually achieving that and making sure you're having the right conversations and getting things set up. So then when you then go for the next round, it's about saying, okay, now we're ready to do this. We've got all this in place. Now we just need the funding to actually make it happen. So the next funding round was really about doing that and was all about getting ourselves a bag machine, the materials in place to roll out the bags, etc. So it was getting all of that developmental stuff happened on that first, you know, that very first raise before we then got to the point where we were ready to actually start making and rolling out bags.
Yeah, so you'd achieved a lot. You're building the narrative really nicely. You're showing that there's a really strong indication that people want what you've got because of all those stores you've signed up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about that next round then. So what was your thinking? You're thinking, right, we're going to go out and raise what?
So we knew that we needed to raise enough to get a bag machine in place, because obviously having your own bag machine meant that we could produce the types of bags that we needed to have. So the bags that we work with are very specific. They're not just your bog standard paper bag. They have to be strong enough to carry, you know, products effectively, because you don't want them breaking. Obviously that wouldn't be great for the advertiser, but they also need to be fully eco-friendly, because obviously at the core of our proposition, it's all about, you know, helping people find out about more conscious brands and, you know, reducing the amount of single-use plastic bags needed. So our bags had to be eco-friendly, fully recyclable, but also strong, and also well and be waterproof. So this was quite a complicated ask. This is not your bog standard bag, because how do you make a waterproof bag out of a paper bag? That's not that easy. So we had to look into a coating for the bag, an eco-friendly, non-plastic based coating, and still find a way for that to be printed and recyclable, etc. So that was going to require a fair bit of investment in product development, materials, etc. So we knew we needed to do quite a lot on the product front, and we needed to get enough bags produced to then actually start testing the distribution through retailers, to actually start generating a bit of data so as we could understand how to bring this to, how to do this at scale and actually engage consumers. So at this point, we had done all of this development. We kind of knew what we wanted to do in terms of actually getting some trials out there. And one of the things that we actually did was, you know, there's lots of routes to funding, and, you know, obviously raising is through investment is just one of them. We actually, at this point, we were applying for an Innovate UK grant, and that is kind of how we then got involved with Sky Ocean Ventures, which is the investment arm of Sky Media Group. And what they were doing is they had done a joint partnership with Innovate UK to help fund businesses that are looking for ways to reduce single-use plastic. So for us, this was a bit of a no-brainer, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. But also Sky Media could potentially be not only a client for us in the sense that we could advertise them, but also they do advertise themselves. So obviously there's lots of advertising on Sky, so they were real experts in this area. So for us, it seems like that would be a really perfect way to get expertise in-house and be able to trial things and be able to get the money in to fund the next stage of our development. So that Innovate grant, kind of, once we'd gone through that process and then we'd secured that funding, that is kind of what then really created the foundation for that next raise, because at that point we were then able to go back to our existing investor base and say, look, this is how much we need, this is the plan, we have Sky on board, you know, all these things have moved forward, we're looking to add some more in, do you want to get involved? And at that point we even had our supply chain come in and actually invest as well. They came in on that round. So that ended up being a really big and important round for us, because we had support coming in from not only our supply chain, who really backed the idea, and, you know, and a really, really crucial part of making sure that we can provide a product that, you know, aligns with our brand values, but also securing someone, you know, such a big, important part of, you know, the media industry coming in and saying, yes, we agree that, you know, we need to get rid of single-use plastic, but also we see what you're trying to do on the advertising side and creating something that's more conscious. Yeah,
I mean, incredible. You couldn't write it how sort of perfectly structured that round was. And
it was fantastic. We were really fortunate.
Really amazing. So they were effectively introduced to you through Innovate UK. Is that right?
Exactly.
But yeah. Great. I mean, Innovate UK are a really great place for people to go to with, you know, with this kind of proposition, because as they're so well connected with these kind of organizations, and they have a lot of very specific kind of funds that will potentially fit with what you're doing. So I would encourage everybody, if you've got a big, you know, especially if you're doing tech development, something really different, or stuff in terms of sustainability, that you should speak to them.
They are fantastic. I mean, the process is complicated. It is difficult to, you know, go through that process, and the competition is
yes, the paperwork.
Yeah, a lot of paperwork. But, you know, I mean, we're very fortunate that we have, you know, incredibly intelligent people working in-house who were able to work on that and do a fantastic job. And we did also seek advice on this as well. So one of the things that we did was we actually invested in some people who understood how to complete Innovate applications to help us with that. I think that's really, really important. It's not as just filling out a form. You have to kind of really understand, you know, how to get to the bones of exactly what they're looking for. So
yeah, that's good advice, actually. So if you're doing that kind of grant application, to get some expert support in the application process.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that was your next big round. So that was Innovate UK, Sky Ocean Ventures, Supply Chain, plus your existing investors and more coming in. So that was before your crowdfund.
That was before the crowdfund. That actually ended up being, I believe that was sort of towards the back end of 2018.
Okay. So quite a big round. So meanwhile, you're using that money to then go out and get your bag machine and stock and starting to test. And how was it all going at that point?
It was good. I mean, at that point, we then started to really focus on the consumer proposition. So it was the next sort of year or so really was about focusing on building an app that could support what was required and things. Building an app, again, something I had no experience in, had no idea what I was doing, and really, it's complicated. It takes a lot of time, and it's a very it's a very involved process. So we really sort of kind of honed in on exactly how to do this. We were running our trials on the side, which were just about distribution and testing the distribution of bags, and then internally we're focusing on the development of the app and understanding what consumers were looking for. How could we incentivize consumers to reuse our bags? And that's when the idea of conscious coins came around, because what we didn't want was just to end up with a sort of, oh, use these bags and get offers. We wanted people to really feel like this is a way that they could they could use the value of what they were doing by carrying and promoting these brands to actually purchase things. So then it was all about developing a sort of a digital currency, really, a sort of eco-friendly digital currency, and finding a way to build that into an app, but also be able to connect that app with the bags in as user-friendly a way as possible. And I think actually one of the things that has helped us, has helped people, has helped us with this recent lockdown is actually people are more familiar with QR codes, which is
because everybody's using them, aren't they, to check into every venue with the NHS app and all that.
Yeah, because prior to that, QR codes, we were having to do quite a lot of education around QR codes, and it was something that people weren't familiar with. Whereas now, people are much more familiar with that. So that's kind of helped that user journey simplify slightly, which is great. But that was really that sort of then next 18 months. Well, we closed the Sky Fund out at the end of 2018. 2019 was really all about testing the distribution, talking to brands about what they were looking for, and then really focusing on the consumer proposition and app development. And then got to the end of 2019, and we were pretty much at a point where we were ready to launch. We started to do some user trials, which went really well. It was very positive. And then, of course, COVID happened. So we then kind of had to take a little bit of a pause, because at that point, you can't really be encouraging people to go out and use their bags as often as possible. No. Because of course everyone was in lockdown. So that then kind of did put a real pause on everything. So we've kind of been, regrouping since the start of that, and had to put those initial plans on hold.
Yeah, how frustrating for you. But as you say, there's some benefits in that. I think that, like you say, the QR codes, and then also I think just that everybody's becoming more conscious of environmental issues as a consequence of the pandemic. I think it's the two have kind of gone hand in hand. So interesting. So then you decided to do a crowdfund.
Yes.
When did you launch your crowdfund, Ashleigh?
So we did our crowdfund in May, June. It was always in our plans to do this, because obviously we're a consumer operated advertising platform. So having consumers as owners of the platform just seems, complete no-brainer. The more you use your bag, not only are you getting rewarded, but the more value you're adding for brands, meaning the more brands that want to be on the platform. So of course you're kind of taking ownership of your own investment there. It really seemed to be something that we'd always wanted to do. So we had planned actually to do it earlier in the year, once we'd started to see more uptake from the user trials. But because obviously that then, how we had to put pause on this, we then actually we pushed it out slightly, and we delayed it to sort of mid-year. And we actually reduced our goal quite significantly, because we were then going to be going with a much smaller and, a much slower go-to-market. So we didn't need quite as much as we initially had planned for.
Yeah, okay. But challenging, I imagine. I mean, it's and it is very unusual to see a crowdfunding raise in the pre-launch phase. So quite a leap of faith, and a complex concept to explain to the more kind of
Yeah.
retail investor or consumer audience when they can't sort of see it yet? How did you find that challenge?
Yes, I don't think I've ever had as little sleep in my life as sort of running, making that decision and running up to that point. It was a real challenge. Absolutely. I mean, obviously our initial plan for the crowdfund would be that we'd have bags out there, that we'd have, a much bigger user network, that people would sort of be seeing what we were doing, they'd buy into that, and they'd really want to own part of it. And it was really for us an opportunity to grow our network and market ourselves once, as you say, we were already out there. However, that was no longer the case. But we still needed to raise. So that we did have to do that. And we still felt that even if we couldn't get quite the same level of engagement, even if it wasn't quite the same opportunity to go as big as we wanted, that we could still explain it in a way that people would understand the opportunity. However, understanding exactly how to communicate that to this audience versus, as you say, our previous audience with, investors and suppliers and retailers, it was definitely different. It was a challenge. We originally, we went out for about a week with our campaign, and actually at the end of that week, completely revised and changed our whole narrative, because we realized that we just weren't hitting the key points based on some of the feedback from the people on the platform. And actually, once we had changed the narrative, we did start to see the engagement that we were looking for, and we did start to pick things up towards then closing the fund out, closing the raise out on the platform. But yeah, it was a real challenge, and like I said, a lot of sleepless nights.
But that narrative, especially at early stage, narrative is almost everything, really. Is everything. What were and like with your concept, there are so many different stakeholders and so many different benefits to what you do. Can you summarize the key change that you had to make in the narrative for the crowdfunding audience?
Yeah, I mean, we ended up really refocusing it on the tech element of what we were doing, and really focusing on the fact that we have all this incredible tech infrastructure. The introduction of the sort of digital green currency, and kind of really basing it around AdTech. Now, I don't know if that would have been right at every single different point of of crowdfunding. I think just for us at that stage, the type of people that were on the platform, that just seemed to work really well with the audience. Whereas previously we had been, I guess, kind of leaning on more of a rewards focus. So this idea of sustainable rewards, and buying more sustainably, that just wasn't resonating with the audience at the time. So we then really shifted it to be much more tech focused and really emphasizing all the amazing tech development that we have.
That's so interesting. And that's probably a function of the fact that, as you say, you weren't talking to consumers who already knew what you were doing. And actually during the pandemic, I suspect you've got probably more of the professional type crowdfunding investors as opposed to the casual.
Absolutely. I think with crowdfunding, it's an audience that I think it's kind of like speaking to an audience that you just don't know until you're live, and you just have to kind of be okay with being a little bit reactive. And again, not sleeping and just researching everything. But do you know what? Once you've done that, and we really pulled together as a team. There was such an amazing energy in the team to really change things and make it work. Because I think we're also passionate about what it is that we're doing. We're so dedicated to building this business that there was no way we weren't going to do everything that we could to make sure that that it was successful. And I think that the energy in the team is what made it possible to make those changes quickly and effectively.
So let's talk about that kind of managing your energy and this lack of sleep that you experience, because raising investment is it's bloody hard work. It can be really exhausting. Doesn't matter how much support you have, there is a lot to do. And a lot of female founders I speak to are very nervous about embarking on a crowdfunding campaign because of those reasons, because of how much work it is. How did you manage your energy throughout this, and how sustainable is it really to be not sleeping very well?
Oh, it's not sustainable. I mean, let's be honest, it's not. You can't do that for, you know, a long period of time. And to be perfectly honest, in the weeks running up to the campaign launching, we've been working so hard and to such a strict sort of, you know, schedule on everything to get everything ready, that, you know, as we were approaching it, I was feeling very, you know, I was feeling nervous about my own energy and my ability to keep the campaign going throughout. I think the key thing really for us was not letting ourselves have some time off, and understanding that actually we were better if we kind of shifted the responsibilities throughout the team and let some people have a bit of time here and other people have a bit of time there, and picking up for each other, than trying to all be on all the time, because it's just, you can't do that. You know, you can't do that. I mean, it took us probably 2 full months of, you know, full working constantly on all of the assets and materials and preparation before it even went live, to get things ready. So by the time we got to the point that it was ready to go live, you know, we would have been burnt out anyway if we hadn't allowed ourselves here and there a little bit of, you know, a day to recover, you know, a couple of days off here or there. So whilst it was, you know, it was tough, and of course, you know, you're not sleeping because it is very stressful, and, you know, you're always thinking, what can we do? How can we do things differently? You know, we did really pull together, and, you know, if someone was struggling, you know, they would just put the hand up and just say, okay, I'm going to need a day here. And as a general rule, that actually worked fine.
So let's talk a little bit about sort of being a female founder, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, because obviously you've got 2 co-founders, is that right? 2 co-founders, both male?
Yes.
So I'd love to know, you know, what your experience has been, if you're able to sort of even identify whether you feel that as a female founder there have been different challenges for you compared to perhaps your co-founders.
Yes, that definitely. And it's a weird thing, because pinpointing that difference is sometimes quite difficult, because it's not always, you know, as simple as out in the open, you know, really, really obvious different treatment. It's just sometimes a different reception you get, or a different line of questioning that you might get, or just a different, you know, a sort of, I think women are very sort of, we're very intuitive, aren't we? So we can, the gut instinct where you can tell that maybe you're just not being heard in quite the same way. And I think that that's one of the issues, is that it's not always easy to point out exactly how that treatment is different, but you can tell that there is, especially when I have 2 male co-founders, and I recognize how there is often a different experience that they have that perhaps I have. And I think that, you know, that there have been some times where it's maybe been a little bit more obvious, you know, if I've gone into investment meetings and questions being asked that I've given an answer to, but the you know, the prospective investor won't acknowledge my involvement and will respond instead to my male co-founder. That has actually happened on a number of occasions, which is it just seems bizarre, because, you know, you don't expect it, and then when it does happen, you're like, is this real? Is this real?
Am I going mad?
Yeah,
very interesting.
But it does happen. You know, I am fortunate in that I do believe that my involvement in being in certain conversations around certain tables in certain rooms has been because I have male co-founders. I don't know how different that experience would be, or how many of those opportunities would have presented themselves to me if it was just me alone. And I think it would have been quite difficult. And I think that the other thing is, I think that, you know, and I am obviously making a very sweeping statement here, but I think for men there's an expectation that, you know, of course they'll go and start their own business. You know, why wouldn't they? And I think that there's a certain, you know, advantage that comes with it already being assumed that it's fine that they would. There's an expectation that that can happen. Whereas with women, because we are, you know, there's few of us female founders, you know, people don't expect it so much. So when they do see it, there's almost already a pre-question in their head about why, and, you know, it's unexpected. So Often when men walk into the room, there's already a sort of, a respect that's given to it, and understanding that, yes, of course you should be there. Whereas with women, it does sometimes feel like you have to fight that little bit harder to be heard, and actually to be questioned in a way that you want to be. I want to be scrutinized. I want someone to challenge me with their questions, and not just to treat me, not mollycoddle you, but you don't want to be treated like, oh well, you're trying.
It's a little bit patronizing sometimes. Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm here because I know my stuff and I work really, really hard. And actually, I back my business. I've worked hard to get here, and I've done, there's a reason why I am. So it's okay. I can face up to the challenge. And in fact, if you don't challenge me and if you don't scrutinize me, how am I going to improve? And that's one of the things. Sometimes you just, you want to be given that same level of scrutiny, because it all knows that there is a respect there.
I mean, on that point, what do you think we can be doing to get over some of these challenges, to encourage more female founders to be raising investment, and also to get the investment community to wake up to some of this insidious gender bias that exists?
I think there's a large part of it where it is changing, especially as, as we go through the generations, and it becomes more commonplace for women to be in leadership roles, and therefore also be, starting their own businesses and be more entrepreneurial. I think that we are seeing more of that. And of course, the more we see of it, the more it just becomes something that is accepted. You can't be what you can't see, right? So you have to start seeing that. And I think that, we're so fortunate that we have the women who have pioneered before us, but even before that, who have taken, the challenge has been so much harder that, they have laid the groundwork for us to even be starting out on these sorts of ventures. So, whilst there is still the challenge now, I imagine it is so much less than it probably was even 10, 20 years ago. But I think the most important thing, it's all, for me, it's about education, exposure and opportunity. And I think that you can't you've got to be able to share that experience with someone. So for me, there's been a couple of different things. I think if you can educate potential investors about the importance of female founded businesses, then that will make a really good start. And I think the more networks we have for women to connect with advice and resource and funding, that's going to make a really important start. But the whole investment community needs to kind of take responsibility for this, in my opinion. You need to expose that community to the potential of female investors. And I believe you have got to start showing female founded businesses in equal ratio to male founded businesses. I think there's a big responsibility, especially probably for VCs and funds, to purposefully do that, because there are enough female founded businesses for us to make that happen. And the more you start to purposefully go out of your way to start, making sure that balance comes into place, then we will actually start to see those opportunities becoming more equal, because that's all it's about. It's just about making sure that equal opportunity is there.
I love what you said about you can't be what you can't see. I think that's very, very insightful. And absolutely, you being involved in this interview is a huge part of that, because there are so many female founders who I think will be very, very inspired by what you've achieved. So thank you for playing your part in this.
I'm here because you are involved in this community, and for me it's so exciting and empowering to see women who are supporting women and really starting to grow this really crucial network of women who can lean on each other and reach out to each other. And I've been speaking to more and more female founders recently about the shared experience, and how we do not we do nothing by just focusing on lifting ourselves. If we lift each other, we all rise. And I think that is so important. Like, let's lift everyone,
I totally agree. Oh, so let's wrap up. What is next for Bagboard? Where are you heading next? more fundraising probably, or what do you think?
It likely will be next year that we do some more fundraising. So obviously this year has been a little bit of a, as it has been for everyone, has not been as expected. But we are finally about to continue the work that we did earlier this year with our user trials. So we have a sort of soft launch happening actually in the next couple of weeks with some very cool new bags that are going out to various boroughs in London, where people will be able to go out and pick up a bag, or if they sign up on our website, they can actually have a bag sent directly to them. So consumers can start doing journeys, earning rewards, and using the sort of very MVP version of our app just to sort of test it out and help us improve it. And what we'll do is we'll take that data and start to put it together towards our next investment raise. And the real focus then will be on growth, because right now we can prove that if we can prove that the sort of basic version of the platform works, and if we can do it at scale, then we can get much bigger brands on board, we can get much bigger investment. And then what we really want to do is get this rolled out across London as quickly as possible and as much at scale as possible, so as we can then start growing beyond just the UK. Because even the idea that we can solve the single-use plastic bag problem in global cities around the world, that's super exciting, beyond the fact that we can raise awareness and direct advertising revenue to brands that are making a real difference. So
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Ashleigh, for sharing your journey so far. And you really, really are only at the very, very start of your journey. I'm super excited. I have pre-ordered my bag, so I can't wait to see what's going to arrive in the post. I shall be carrying it around with me and earning some conscious coins. Really exciting. And I wish you all the best, and do please keep in touch and let us know how things go. Although I'm sure we will just see it. We're going to be seeing these bags everywhere.
That would be the dream. So no, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And really, it's been wonderful talking to you. So thank you for having me on.
Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience, expert guidance, and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.